Ladies, welcome to the Feminine Mystery. My name is Azalea Dawn, and first and foremost, thank you so much for joining me here. I am so excited to announce that I have hit 1,000 subscribers here on YouTube, and that is a crazy milestone to reach. I know that it's still such a small channel, such a small community and space, but still, this is incredibly focused, very targeted, very specific, and I just appreciate that there are so many of you that resonate with the messages that I'm sharing and come back every time that I upload. At least I almost said each week, but you come back every time that I upload for more. So I just want to thank you so much for your presence. Today, I wanted to talk all about how you can essentially stop a man, or at least discourage a man from cheating on you. Now, this is something that really just came to me. I was in the middle of actually doing some housework here. I was just, setting things up, loading the dishwasher, and, you might hear that a little bit in the background. I've moved to a different space in my home, but I just randomly got this message that came to me, and I was like, oh, I should really speak about this, because I do think that it is something that a lot of women are wondering about. And I definitely think that there's a little bit of a narrative that's out there that I'd like to maybe push back on a little. But we're going to get into that. Of course, you don't need me to tell you why you don't want a man cheating on you. If you have clicked on this video, you are already on board with that much. But hopefully I can give you some actionable steps to take here that are really going to empower you to transform maybe your current relationship, but also the relationship that you have in the future. So without further ado, let's get started. Now, the first step here is to really release distorted thinking around our choices. Now, what do I mean when I say distorted thinking? That is a bit of a loaded phrase. You wouldn't walk up to someone in the street and tell them like, oh, the way that you're thinking about your situation is distorted. That's a little bit unhinged. That said, I think that one thing that I very commonly see is a lot of thinking that does not necessarily help you make your situation better. Now, I think that there is a lot to be said for the importance of self-soothing and self-care, and there is a time and place for all of that. But when it comes to your life, you have to understand that what you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. Any time that you choose to put yourself into, I know that we don't like hearing the words victim mindset. That can become a little bit of a toxic or loaded phrase. But anytime you start to think of yourself as helpless, anytime you start to think of yourself as a victim, as someone who suffered because someone else did something to you, right? Anytime you start to give your power away to someone else, that becomes how you live your life. And that's such a disempowering thing. When you create a narrative for yourself where you are sitting here and other people are doing things to you that you are powerless towards, that is not something that is, if anything, helpful. I think that one of the things that, again, is just a bit of I guess you wouldn't even want to call it a distorted thought, but maybe a less than helpful thought. One saying that Oprah frequently cites is by the ever so wise Maya Angelou, who once famously said, "When you know better, you do better." And the thing about a victim mindset, or thinking that things are just happening to you and they're out of your control, is that you're robbing yourself of an opportunity to learn from things that happen to you. And the thing about this is, if any of you understand, like spiritually, like what's just going on in the world, you will be put in situations again and again until you decide to learn something, until you grow, until you no longer need to be in that situation again. So the most important thing you can do is empower yourself to learn from your situations and to take different actions. Now, what would I suggest you actually do here? Well, first thing is to embrace radical accountability. The thing about that is so challenging is that people often think of themselves as if something has to be their fault for it to be their responsibility, but that is not the case. Start to think about everything that happens to you as your responsibility. It's for you to learn something from anything, whether that is somebody else's fault or not. This is your responsibility. And that one shift in your mindset is so powerful. It will put your life on a completely different trajectory in so many different areas, including in your relationships. So really start to lean in and think, oh, okay, I'm not just going to be helpless here. I'm going to take actions, right? And really make sure that I'm in the driver's seat. I have both my hands on the wheel, and I'm going to take myself to the destination that I want to be at. Next, ladies, embrace the beauty of mutual commitment. Now, one mistake that I see that is very, very common in my opinion is that a lot of women don't necessarily get a lot of clarity around the types of relationships that they're in. And therefore that leads to things like situationship culture and all sorts of undesirable things in the long term. The number one thing that you can really do in your relationship is get clarity on where the other person is at and start to align yourselves in your common purpose and common goals. And don't be afraid of that in a relationship. Anybody who genuinely wants the same thing as you is not invested in hiding or evading or dodging, right? Letting you know that. And I think that one of the things that our culture really gets wrong today is this notion of, let me dance around it and ease my way into it. Let me be so casual and blah, blah, blah. Everybody, from the first date onwards, people understand that you are not there looking for this person that you just met on maybe some dating app or some referral through a friend or something like that. They understand that you're not there to make that person your husband today. We don't have to be so afraid of being perceived as crazy in that way, just by being serious and communicating that, hey, we're dating to find a partner for marriage. We're dating to find a husband. We're dating to build a family together, and that we have standards and expectations, right? In reality, all of that is the kind of thing that you should really be starting relationships from the foundation of. And when it comes to commitment at all levels, so when you think about the beginning of relationships all the way up to marriage, the most important thing is that your commitments are mutual, that they are shared, that you have shared values that align and you want to move in the same direction as this other person. And it's important that you actually talk about this with your boyfriend, your partner, your husband, instead of assuming that he feels the same way that you do. And it's also important that you are receptive if you're told or shared with otherwise. For example, towards the beginning of a relationship, when you are just in the dating stage of things, it's very important for this man to actually ask you for monogamy, to ask you to be in an exclusive monogamous relationship with him. And anything less than that should be taken as he does not want this, right? If somebody at the end of the day, if he wants something, he will get it. He will pursue that. If he wanted to, he would, right? And I think that that is a big part of what we're missing here. When it comes to marriage, the same thing. If you want to be married and to have a family, are you talking with him about that? Is that where he sees himself? Does he want to be a husband? Does he want to be a father? Right? Onboarding each other onto these sets of mutually shared goals, onto this mutually shared vision of the future is very, very important. I know for some of you it sounds obvious, but this is about practicing instead of, just understanding the rhetoric. You don't want to just understand it, you want to put it into practice. So actually have conversations with your partner. Talk about what he sees for himself in the future, not what you see for yourselves. Don't lump it in together. Don't start the entire we thing. Talk to him and then listen to what he's saying. Does he have a vision of the future that includes you? What role does he see you playing in his future? Does he see you being the mother of his children? Does he see you as being someone that he wants to spend the rest of his life with? Does he see you as somebody that he wants to marry and really commit to? Or is that maybe not the case? Now, here's where we're really going to get into the action. I want you to open yourself up to consequential thinking. Now, this is something I really think a lot of women get very wrong about the idea of cheating or being cheated on, all that. I think a lot of women they make it very emotional. Right? You feel as though you want somebody to constantly choose you. You want somebody to wake up and look at you and be like, I want to be here. I want to choose this in every single moment. And a lot of women, they think about this as having the least amount of requirements as possible. So when it comes to the women in my life who I consider friends, when they say that they don't want to be married or they don't want to be in a committed relationship, often what they tell me is that, yeah, they want this person that they're laying with, to wake up in the morning and look at them and decide, okay, I want to be there. And that, I think, is, again, it goes back to a little bit of what I would refer to as distorted thinking, right? At the end of the day, it's not necessarily an emotional thing for a lot of men in the same way that it is for a lot of women. And that is just dealing with the reality of the world that we're in, our biological realities. Really, truly, it is just not the same. A lot of men are consequential thinkers. They are consequential decision makers. And you really have to stop thinking about things the way that you want them to be, the way that you think about things, and start to look at it through the lens of another person, right? If somebody really is in a situation where they can have their cake and eat it too, and they like cake, you're going to have a really hard time convincing them not to take a slice. In the same way, if you are constantly making it so easy for somebody to cheat on you, right? If nothing is going to happen to them, if nothing is going to change in their lives, and they, at the end of the day, want to have sex with a variety of women, not to be so explicit, but it is what it is. We're all adults here, hopefully. If somebody wants to do that, you're going to have a really hard time dissuading them without some real consequences to that behavior. So when I say embracing the idea of consequences in your relationship, I really want you to think about that as a benefit, not a punishment. Consequences help keep things on track. It helps remind consequential decision makers, the way that many masculine men are, right? That if they do something, there are going to be negative consequences for their actions. Now, what might those consequences look like? I've talked about prenups before. I will do even more on them in the future because a prenup is one of the most important things when you are getting married. And it's not like the mainstream media tries to convince you that it is. A prenup can include all sorts of things. It can include lump sum payouts for you in the event that you are getting divorced from someone. It can include a certain amount in spousal alimony. It can have things like a cheating clause, right? And enumerate certain terms in the cheating clause. You have in the United States what's called a right of contract. And a lot of people don't know and don't understand this. Essentially, you have the right to make whatever contract you want in terms of a legal agreement between two people. And the courts will respect that as long as it's two consenting adults entering into an agreement through a contract. That means that whatever terms you want to have in there for if something were to happen in your relationship, if something were to happen in your marriage, those can be written into that contract, and a court in whatever state in the United States will have to respect that. It defaults to that contract. If you do not have a contract in place, then it defaults to state law. Now, that is why a prenuptial agreement, which is simply an agreement, it doesn't mean that you're agreeing to take nothing, leave with your tail in between your legs, and be, a broke woman just out on her own in the world, right? That's not what you have to agree to. I think that's just something that the culture tries to push on you, right? And therefore, a lot of women who are just a little bit ignorant around things, that's what they believe in response to that. But you want to start to build consequences into your relationship, and a prenup is a great way to do that. So if you'd like a video going into more detail about that in the future, I'm happy to do one. But for now, I would just say embrace consequential thinking and don't just leave things up to whatever somebody is feeling in that moment. Because when it comes to temptation, things happen, but you want there to be consequences that are reminding someone that this is not worth it. Finally, ladies, I want you to create an environment that reminds him of you. Now, this is again something that I think might have a little bit of a counterculture kind of lean to it, because again, we're in this culture that's very go with the flow. Whatever happens, happens. You're a victim. If somebody does something to you, then that's his problem. He just did that to you. You're a victim. Just sit there and feel a lot of pity for yourself. And this is an entire video about why that is not what you want to do here. You want to get in there and start to make choices for yourself. Start to steer things in a direction that you want to go. So if you're somebody who feels like, okay, this is going to be very quote unquote manipulative and you don't want to do anything to influence anybody, you just want them to do whatever they want to do and you're just going to suffer if you suffer, this really probably has not been the best video for you as a whole. But if you are somebody who is serious about steering things to a direction that you want it to go, this is going to be another thing that you can really do and implement in your relationship. And that is to really create memories, create an environment that constantly reminds him of your presence. Now, this can happen in a variety of ways. The first one is to have points at which you're regularly connecting in an intimate and emotional way. Imagine like if you are in a relationship and you are just kind of going about your day-to-day life. You are maybe married, but you're kind of like living more so as like roommates. You kind of just see each other in like a little bit of like a Twilight crossing. And then you suddenly find out that your husband was in this cozy little Italian restaurant in a booth with another woman. Just maybe like in the back corner, and they were, in a dimly lit room, kind of, clinking wine glasses together, staring into each other's eyes and having a really deep conversation, right? Would that make you feel good? No, that's intimacy, and that's creating an environment of intimacy around them that you would not really like to see another person engage in with your partner. I'm willing to bet. That is why it's so powerful. Don't underestimate the ability of yourself to create those intimate moments, and for that level of intimacy to have an emotional impact on another person. It does work, and it works very, very well. That's why it's so upsetting to think about another person doing that to your partner. So you want to use that power, use that knowledge for your own good, and really start to harness it in creating more of those emotional moments together. Create those intimate spaces. Make sure that you're having that date night. Make sure that you're having this point at which you are directly connecting in like a dimly lit space that feels romantic. You're having that eye contact. You're dressed well. You're looking your best. You look beautiful. You look tempting. Make sure that you're incorporating that into your relationship. When you're in your home together, if you're living together, right, make sure that there are photos of you, of the two of you, and of just you all over the place, that every morning he's waking up and he's seeing you, he's seeing your presence, he's seeing the life that you've built together. If you have children, make sure that every year, or maybe multiple times a year, you're taking family portraits and you're capturing all these special moments, and go through the trouble of making sure that you print them out and really use them in like a big way that really has a presence in your home. Consider creating things like a family photo wall and things of that nature that just really are visual reminders. Even when you're not there, they remind your husband, your boyfriend, your partner of your presence. They remind him of the life that you've built together. Maybe take an initiative, and if you're maybe looking for a gift to give for a birthday or a holiday, be a little sneaky here. I want you to take a picture of yourself looking your best, right? Really go through the trouble, frame it, and give that to him as a picture. Tell him to take it and put it on his desk at work. Or maybe a picture of you two as a couple. Although I really recommend just a solo picture of you or a picture of you and your children if you have them, right? Because like a lot of men, they don't necessarily want to be looking at a picture of themselves, but they do want to be looking at a picture of you who they love so much, right? Give that to him as like a little bit of like a birthday or Christmas present, along with maybe a couple of other things, and really encourage him to use it. All of these little things, they do work and they work incredibly well. So make sure that you are using this knowledge to your advantage and constantly reminding him of you and what you've built together. Now, ladies, that's going to be it for me in this video. If you've enjoyed it, then please leave a like below and let me know what else you'd like to hear from me on this channel.